Hello everyone, welcome to Filmmakers and their films. And with us we have Raghavendra sir, who's a well-known film critic. Over to you, sir.
So, whatever is crime films I've given you for crime films, which I think should be extremely exciting for all of you because they're very more or less Lashian would be pretty well known, not the others, I think. Okay. Now, when you deal with the issue of crime, okay, there are several genres of the crime story. One is a detective story in which the solving of the crime is important, like Sherlock Holmes. Okay, it's generally not necessarily about cinema, but the stories themselves. Sherlock Holmes stories, Agatha Christie, that is one, what you call the whodunit, right? Then you've got this thing of the hard-boiled detective story, right? Hard-boiled detective story is the American crime story. Dashiell Hammett, Raymond Chandler. I don't know if you've heard of these people. Something like Chinatown would be hard-boiled detective story. Chinatown, something like Maltese Falcon, Big Sleep, that would be hard-boiled detective story. Then there is the adventure caper film, which takes the viewpoint of the criminal, like Thomas Crown Affair, Italian Job, Rififi. I don't know if you've seen Rififi, okay? And then there is noir. Noir actually is the bigger category in which the hard-boiled detective story would fit. One of the things about noir is that evil triumphs. That is, good people get into, are drawn into crime and are punished. Evil usually triumphs in noir, which is what makes it. It's not so much the visual style or the lighting or any such thing as they generally take it to be. Okay. For example, VK Murthy tried to produce noir lighting, which has nothing to do with the content of the movie, right? I mean, Kagas Ki Phool is not noir material, right? But the question is that lighting was produced. So the question is this lighting, chiaroscuro lighting or whatever, is nothing to do with noir, right? Noir generally, the basic thing is it's dark, morally dark. It's where evil usually triumphs, okay? Then there is Hitchcock. If you look at Hitchcock, for instance, it's a suspense film. Hitchcock didn't produce noir. He didn't produce detective story, right? It's a kind of suspense film, but the whole thing is like a puzzle of some sort, right? It's like a puzzle. So if you look at Hitchcock, there's a gradually the revealing of the plot, how this thing is put together becomes very important in Hitchcock. Okay. Now, none of these categories is particularly interested in criminal motivation and psychology, right? So most of them use simple motivation like greed, hate, desire, or revenge, or jealousy, that sort of thing, right? That's a basic thing. You wouldn't, for example, there's no, I mean, of course, psychological complexity has been read into Hitchcock. But yeah, by and large, you wouldn't think. For example, you take something like, yeah, I mean, his later film, probably Psycho, there is something like that. Something Rear Window, there is some psychological complexity. Vertigo, there is psychological complexity. But by and large, she was basically producing suspense, and we have to read it as an interpretation of Hitchcock a little bit, okay? But what the films chosen today are explorations of criminal behavior, okay? The motivation is somewhat complex, and the circumstances or the circumstances can be quite extraordinary. Now, as I did earlier, I don't know, one of my earlier sessions, I dealt with the French cinema being interested in individual behavior. You know what that is? Romer, Eric Romer is one person. I think of what's his name? Claude Sauté, individual behavior. The important thing about individual behavior is French cinema is that the French thing of the citizen, right? They look at each other as equals in some sense. They're all surveying each other as citizens in the thing, whereas Americans would have one main character and everybody else would be reduced to side players or they'd be character actors and that sort of thing, right? So the French cinema is very specifically, which is why French acting also takes a certain thing. It's very difficult in French cinema. In Romer, for instance, you can't pick out the protagonist right at the beginning. If A and B are having a conversation, the protagonist could be A or it could be B. Whereas in American film, okay, it would always have to be one of them will be picked out to the star in some way, right? It'll be picked out. It doesn't happen in French cinema. For a person like Alain Delon, or a person like Michel Piccoli, or a person like Trentino could be in some way could be in a situation, but more than somebody like Romer would really pick non-actors in some way. Okay. The same thing with Bresson also. Okay. Now, the question is, there are many questions which can be asked. Is there something like criminal character, Okay, is a question which is often asked, and meaning that whether some people are drawn to crime, whether some people are identified as criminals, and also the question of ethics. Can you benefit from somebody else's crime and not share culpability? Okay, these are the basic issues which I'm trying to going to look at in this session, right? Let's go to the first one, Lachien. As I said, I'm looking at not so much as more as behavior rather than psychology of criminal psychology in this film, how they are identified, what is the thing, how they are, what exactly is criminal behavior I'm looking at. Okay, any questions?
How would the Anne Hannibal Lecter's crime the trilogy? You know,
That's an
that's the
interesting.
criminal
Yeah,
behavior.
Cannibal. What was my understanding of Hannibal Lecter, right? Now, the important thing is basically who done it, right? I'm talking about Silence of the Lambs. Okay, I'm talking about Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
It's basic, all of them, in fact. Basically, one of the things of a who done it is, okay, this is a very interesting question that you asked. Basically, the thing of a who done it is, the whole plot is actually like a puzzle, right? There's really no psychological complexity in a whodunit. There is no, what do you say, motivational complexity in a whodunit. So what happens in a whodunit is the detective who's unraveling the whole thing is given eccentricities to make the story interesting. You get me? Okay, like Sherlock Holmes has to shoot cocaine or something, or and Hercule Poirot has to be arrogant. He has to have a waxed mustache, and he has to break off into French every 2 sentences. There are a number of these guys. There is one Baroness Oxy. Have you heard of Baroness Oxy, who wrote the Scarlet Pimpernel? There's an old man who's crippled. He sits around and plays with knots. And he ties knots. The number of these Chinese detectives, the basic point is to Miss Marple, okay, all this sort of thing. The basic thing is to give color to your detective in order, because when the story begins, by and large, the thing is already over, right? Okay, the question is, in what he does in this Hannibal Lecter series is that the story gradually unravels, but the question is still, there is no way of that person influencing your thing. It's not like the hard-boiled detective story. Hannibal Lecter, if you watch these movies, Hannibal Lecter is simply a colorful character, right? His crimes have nothing to do, okay, with the actual crimes this film is about. You get me? So the question is something like Silence of the Lambs. He's actually cheating, he's trying to make it out that Hannibal Lecter is a murderer. He's been eating human beings, but whatever he does is irrelevant to the plot of this movie. You get me? Okay. So the question is, it's only an extreme case of giving color to a character, because what Hannibal Lecter does is in no way related to what is being investigated in the movie. Okay. So it's basically cheating of some sort. I don't think much of this Hannibal Lecter. I don't think much of his psychological thing. I don't think much of that. It's basically a kind of way to sort of give him color. That's basically it. Okay. Which is why yeah. This is why I thought that this guy's, what's his name? I was very fond of Verhoeven's, which is that film I told you about it. Verhoeven's Basic Instinct. I was because he made fun of this thing in a completely different way. And I did that in the Verhoeven class. I won't go into that. Okay. Now, coming to Lachien, there are 3 people in the story. An honorable man who is respectable, but unthinkingly driven to embezzlement and murder because of the immediate feelings for this woman, right? Second, there's a criminal type, a pimp, who has a long history of felony, but has not committed any crime, right? Not committed the crime. The central crime in this film is the murder of this woman, right? This prostitute or whatever. The third is this victim of the crime who's stupid and amoral. Her cardinal sin is she lacks judgment. Who's the victim? She lacks judgment. Okay, and she doesn't know what is right for her, what is beneficial. She doesn't have any clue at all. Okay. My point here is, the interesting thing about the film is the notion of the criminal character. Here, there seems to be a sense in this film that the criminal character is the one worthiest candidate for punishment. Okay. It has nothing to do with whether he's the criminal, actual person responsible for the crime or not. I don't know if you worked in organizations. Okay. I don't know whether you come across this. I was working in an organization sometime in a bank of some sort. And I used to notice, something, that the people who do wrong are different from the people who get fired, There are certain fireable people, okay? There are wrongdoers. The wrongdoers are not the guys who are fired, right? There are the fireable people who are actually fired, right? They're completely different categories altogether. A person has done nothing, but he looks nervous and he's like unlikely to do anything. He gets fired. I mean, this is a common thing. Similarly, in criminal thing, when the police start investigating the thing, this criminal type, who this fellow, the pimp here, okay, he seems to be the ideal candidate for punishment. That there's nothing to do with whether he has committed this crime or not. This is my sense of it. Okay, no, the criminal character is conscious that it is his nature to be a criminal, right? He's conscious that he's a criminal. And then when he communicates, therefore, when he communicates after the crime is committed, when he communicates, all his actions are suspicious. Okay, he does not report the murder. Okay, the reason he does suspicious things is he sees himself as a criminal character, and this is because he's a criminal character, he has to behave like one, and this is the basic way he does that. Okay, this particular crime, they don't even bother to find out whether he's committed the crime or not. The guy who's actually committed the crime is let off. He's not the criminal type. No, I don't know if you know this writer called Jean Genet, a very interesting writer called Jean Genet, who's actually a thief who became a writer, one of the great writers, French writers, Genet, Jean Genet. Okay, I believe he was a thief, and they arrested, whatever. He was a thief and all that in school or whatever, reform school. He stole something. So they asked him, why did you steal? And you know what he said? He said, because everybody thought I was a thief. So the question is, his image is that of a thief. Okay. His self-image is that of a thief. He steals. The self-image of you, for example, if you just look at the study, if you just study the number of murders committed in our cities and all that, the people the police catch, okay, the who are arrested, who are murdered, okay, you look at them, you will find there a definite type of some sort. Okay, it does that. I mean, that which is why the police, given their how the police are in India, they're not a very particularly bright lot. But the number of crimes they solve seems to be huge, and I don't think they make mistakes. Of course, they do use torture and all this. I don't think they make huge number of mistakes by catching criminal types. Okay, now here I like to ask you a question. Okay, forget about who is the criminal in this particular movie, Lashian. Okay, let's say let's take this the protagonist who commits the murder and the pimp who's executed for the murder. If you take these two, who is better punished of the two? Who is better kept off the streets? Who is better liquidated? I mean, if you look at that way, how would you know? It seems to me, you know very well, the protagonist in this film, though he has committed the crime, is not a bad sort. He's actually a moral sort, right? Okay, and he punishes himself somehow. He does not benefit from his crime. And there is, I mean, it's not that it's simply fiction. Okay, it's plausible fiction. Okay, when you make it plausible fiction, you're actually saying that there's some truth in it, that society works on these lines, right? So my point here is that the criminal type, because he identifies as a criminal type, okay, he's believing, it's this thing of I am what I am. Okay, I am a criminal. This is what I do. This sense of self, I am what I am is very important. See, there are two things as far as I am is concerned, right? One is what I am is one thing. What I should be is another thing. A number of people, I mean, a large proportion of the people that we meet around us are not confident, are not conscious of this, what I should be. Okay, they're very conscious of what I am, what I should be, with ambition of some sort. But even ambition is, when I say what I should be, I mean moral ambition. I don't mean, material ambition. Moral ambition, achievement ambition, okay, this kind of thing, okay. What I should do, gradually grow, how I should go about it. People don't do that, okay. So the point is, what I am, people act like the way they define themselves, okay. They define themselves in a certain way and act according to that. This criminal type, I forget what is the name of this criminal type. I forget his name. He seems to identify himself as a criminal in this movie, and which is why he acts exactly like the criminal who's committed the crime. He does not report the crime. His immediate conduct on seeing the dead body is to act suspiciously, get into the car, drive away, not report it. Okay. So the question, when the people come back, when the police come looking for him, they immediately catch him, and he's the first person who does this. The honorable man who actually commits the crime cannot live with it. He finds it very difficult. This is there in Crime and Punishment also. The person, it's not his nature to commit the crime, but he murders it out on some impulse. He somehow or other has to come out with this. Okay, he has to come. It is not so much a matter of conscience. Okay, but he cannot. It's not. He cannot live up to that thing. So somehow or other, it slips out. Okay, once the policeman finds out that this guy is likely, he's the kind of guy, he goes on prodding him, and that guy has to come out and other and confess, though there's really no evidence against him. This is the kind of thing. It's not really, it is not what is normally called, getting his dessert or whatever. It's not like that. There's actually a sense of a person who's not a criminal type, okay, who somehow or other would not be able to live with it. This is the basic thing. His life stance is different, this thing is different. So what they are is very important here, okay? So the law also is finally zeroing in on criminal types. They're not zeroing in, they're not catching the person who are actually responsible for the act. They are basically catching people who are dangerous to society. And they somehow mix and match, they seem to mix and match the crime with the person who's committed it. This is the way I see the film. I mean, Renoir is not saying all this, but it seems to be that is the kind of thing that happens, that some person is found, they try to fit this guy's characteristics to that of a criminal, and they'll do this, right? This kind of thing they do. Okay. Now, also this question of victims. Now, the point here is, which I would like to ask, thing is, look at the victim, right? What kind of person is this victim really? I mean, she doesn't seem to have any sense of self-preservation at all, right? She's exploited, completely exploited by this pimp who takes everything. She can't preserve, she can't, and she also goes out of her way to insult the other fellow, to humiliate him, to, I mean, not insult, I mean, she sort of, what is the word? She wounds him deeply. I mean, I'm not surprised that he murdered her in that scene, right? He murders, they don't show him committing the murder. Then you have this thing of the cat outside, that great scene of the cat, sitting in the window, and the murder has been committed. Then again, that thing of the murder, that cat also, what it does, takes away from the drama in some sense, puts it in a context, puts it in a thing, likely, it cannot be helped. It's like, like a natural event almost. It turns that whole thing into a natural event, that murder. It is only natural that this woman would be murdered. When you look at the kind of people who actually get murdered, and you look in the papers, what do you find? You find, okay, that this person is a money lender who has had huge amount of money in her house, gold jewelry in her house. They keep gold jewelry in their house. They manage money, okay. I've seen this. Everybody in the vicinity, if you keep money in the household, no, okay, everybody in the vicinity knows that you have money in your house. Okay, everybody knows about it. Somehow the word gets around. So the point, you can't conceal it like that. The matter will get around. The point is, it seems to be that these victims are as natural and as much types in that sense, right? The victim is as much a type. This is the way I see it, right? As the criminal is a type, right? So the question is, the victims are, you study the newspaper thing of the kind of crimes which are detected and all that, the way they're reported, it would seem to me that there's actually a natural selection of, victims, a natural selection of, it doesn't happen at random, it happens, okay, information gets around, that this person is a victim, that information of what this person did, what the person was doing, what the person's likelihood of that person having money, that person getting into trouble would be there, okay. So this is generally my sense of this Lashian, is that there are all these issues raised by the film, which is what makes it such a complex film. Okay, is this is a notion of criminal as type. Who is the person who commits the crime? Is that crime really important in the punishment of somebody, or is the law simply weeding out what are called undesirables under the pretext of crime? All these issues are there. He's not raising them as moral issues, as from the activist mode, and saying that the right person should be punished. He's not even asking these questions. He's presenting it in a realistic way and makes us ask. If you ask, probably put these questions to Renoir, he may not answer these questions. But this is this is my sense of it. Now, can you have a respond to this? What do you think of what I'm saying? What do you think of
So
it?
I think it does make sense, but one thing I couldn't really digest is why does he murder her?
Why does he
Uh,
murder her?
yeah. Why does he murder her? Because I mean, it was clear from the very beginning, those small nuances that she's not quite interested, and maybe,
Yeah, but you
uh,
know the way she went about it, right?
yeah,
The way she insulted his thing, the way his looks, his look, this thing of physical disgust, no, of
mm-hmm,
a man. He's got a woman there, right? That woman is there. She's not interested in him, but she's
mm-hmm,
mildly okay.
yeah,
And she look at the whole story. She's been stealing his pictures. His pictures
yeah,
are being
yeah,
sold somewhere.
yeah,
Just look at that. And that pimp is there. I think that, in fact, the title of this movie is a red hot title. That
mm-hmm,
is why they don't translate into English and say the bitch. You can't use that. You can't use such a
mm-hmm,
term. And he says this. The way he says that. No, you're like a bitch. He says you're like a bitch. You will lick the hand that feeds you and the hand that beats you, right?
yeah.
It's actually. I mean, if you look at it today, a film like this can't be made at all because I
No,
mean.
but could it be that severe that he goes ahead and murders her?
No, no, he
That would
murders
be,
her in a fit, that knife is lying around, right?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
not his
yeah, yeah,
nature at all.
yeah,
He
yeah.
feels, I mean, obviously he can't, I mean, he's completely lost it after that murder. He can't do anything at all. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
After that murder, he's just lost it. Okay. He doesn't have the courage to take responsibility for it. He's not that kind of person. Okay. He's not the kind of person to take responsibility.
Right.
He's a weak guy. He's basically a weak guy who
Mm-hmm.
has basically a decent person, basically a weak guy. Okay. And because of that, he can't take responsibility for it. He gets out of it. When the other person is executed, he feels bad for it because he feels bad because
Yeah.
he's deeply crushed by that. The fact that he's sent somebody else, an innocent man, to the gallows. He doesn't. I mean, not to the guillotine. I think guillotine or gallows. I'm not sure. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So he sends him to his death, and he's deeply. So the final thing is that it's a break. He doesn't even recognize his own paintings, right? He's completely broken. There's nothing for him to live for. He's completely broken. So this is the basic thing of this character. He can't live anymore. It's not like retribution. It's not retribution. The retribution is from outside. Okay. This is a psychological inner. Usually retribution is from outside, that there is some metaphysical thing. In melodramas, you have retribution. This is not a melodrama in that way. It's realistic. Okay. So it's
Yeah.
basically his own thing. This is the way. So I mean, you cannot. I mean, he obviously is a guy who's not capable with it normally, but the situation is like that. He does something which is not really part of him. Okay.
That's true.
Any questions
And
on this? Yeah,
yeah,
please. Yeah.
yeah. Just one more thing, sir. It was quite funny also the way
Yeah.
the pimp acted. He was like at times, yes, I only
Yeah,
did
this is
it,
the
and
thing. This is the thing. Interesting thing is that pimp, when he goes to court, when he's talking in court, the lawyer does not try to say did not commit the crime. He tries to tell him what made him what he is. See, the emphasis is not on what he did, but on what he is. You get me? Okay. He says he had a childhood like this. He was brought up badly. He was brought up this. He was brought up that. So the whole question is his character. Character means what he is as a person, rather than whether he committed this crime or not. So this leads us very much to ask, who actually picked out for punishment by the law? Okay, who is picked out by the punishment? If punishment is supposed to prevent certain people, it's supposed to prevent crime. Okay, is it right in picking out the people who have not committed the crime, innocent people, because they are basically criminal at heart? Okay, this is a question. This is an interesting thing, because Renoir doesn't take moral positions on what is right and what is wrong on this thing. It becomes very interesting. Okay, is that all right? Any other questions? So this is the thing, that victims also seem to be picked out. These completely helpless people who do all kinds of things, endangering themselves, who can't protect themselves, are the ones who are picked up as victims. Who also, who become victims somehow in the kind of. There seems to be a natural thing of victimhood, a natural tendency towards victimhood, a natural tendency towards crime in people. is one of the things that you can take from this movie. Of course, it's only an interpretation I'm giving. It's not so much that the Renoir is saying this.
So
Renoir
just
is too ambiguous as filmmaker. He's too ambiguous a filmmaker to drive home this kind of message in his movies. It won't be acceptable. Let me say it's not morally acceptable at all to take this point of view. What I'm giving you, right? But it's a non whether it's right or wrong is not so important as much as I think. Any other question,
May
Balaji?
I ask, may
Yeah,
I ask something?
yeah, please.
If you say that the point of execution
Ah,
is to send a message to the rest of the society to prevent anybody else from thinking along similar lines.
yeah.
Okay, that is the purpose. Uh, if you executed the wrong man and it still sends the same message, is that okay?
It's not okay. I'm saying, look, the whole point is a person cannot be punished for the crime he's committing. Okay, for example, let's say this. Okay, an honorable man commits a major crime unintentionally. Okay, a dishonorable person who's a small-time criminal. Okay, a small-time criminal is not responsible for the crime. This honorable, I'm saying, it might benefit society to keep, let us say, I'm not saying to punish, I'm saying it may benefit society to keep the actual criminal out of the streets. But that does not mean that crime has to be justice as well, right? It's not simply to make society better. Okay, there's the issue of justice, which is a somewhat different thing, right? A person can only be punished for the crime. The question is the right thing in this situation. The right thing in this situation, what would be for this painter, whatever the guy who played by Michel, what's his name, Michel, whatever, for him, the protagonist, to be punished, but given a light punishment because it's not his nature, because there are extenuating circumstances, would be justice. Okay, the what is it called? The what's his name? The pimp. Okay, should be punished for whatever he's doing, for whatever that is. That would be the right thing. That would be the just thing. What I am saying here is, okay, not exactly what should be done, what is morally correct. Okay, I'm not talking like that. I'm trying to interpret this movie, what exactly this means, how society works. Okay, not how it ought to work, but how it works. You get me? You get me?
I don't want to press the point too much,
Ah,
but if you take any criminal who's guilty of murder and lock him away for life, okay, that prevents him from committing further crimes. But the reason to execute him, rather than just keeping him locked away permanently, the reason to execute him is to send a warning to the rest of society. Isn't that the point?
no,
And
no,
then
no. Yeah, that is true. You know, yeah,
whether
no, no, but
executing the wrong man sends the
yeah.
same message.
No, no, but the point is this. I know I'm not this thing of you're bringing in the death sentence into it, right? See, the question is that the death sentence is a different issue. I don't want to bring that here, right? I don't want to bring that. It's a completely different issue. We're not talking about death sentence. We're just simply talking about punishment, right? In this particular film, the death sentence makes this fellow's what do you say? What's his name? This guy, this the protagonist painter. It makes his says a breaking of himself, his breakup, far more decisive because he's done something ghastly, has made a wrong man go to his death. That is the issue. Okay, I will not bring the death sentence into it. It will become too much of a digression. I'm not talking about death sentence here at all. Okay, I don't want to bring that issue into this. This discussion is simply about punishment. It so happens in this film that death sentence was in France at that particular time. I don't think the death sentence is central to this movie at all. And I'm not talking about what society should be. I'm talking about the way interpreting this film. See, this film is basically trying to understand how society works. What exactly is it? Not a question of it's not a prescriptive thing on how society should work, but the way the law is supposed to work is different from the way it actually works. You get me? Okay. Nobody will say that criminal type should go instead of the person who's committing the crime. Nobody would say that, but it seems to happen in society. Okay, it seems to happen all the time. Okay, I hope that answers your question. Should we go to the next one then? Next slide. Now, this is a very interesting film, Jailbait. Now, the basic thing about this is it is set in post-war Germany in the 1950s, right? Hani is 14. He has a relationship with a 19-year-old Franz who's jailed. When she comes out, they resume the relationship and she gets pregnant. When the father becomes a threat, Hani coerces her lover into killing her father, right? Now, one of the things about Fassbinder, very interesting fact about Fassbinder is that Fassbinder cast grown-up women to play child parts. Okay, very young parts. If you've seen Effie Briest, you'll see that also. The important thing is Fassbinder. I mean, he cast. What is the reason for? I don't know if you've seen Effie Briest. What is the reason for Fassbinder casting grown women as children? Right? Because child would automatically mean innocence in some sense, right? You actually cast a child. But grown woman as an innocent person, of course, in this particular thing, she was only a 19-year-old woman who was cast as a 14-year-old. But Effie Briest, I think he cast much 20s, 25, 26 as a little girl or something like that. He used to do this. He did this, and then he used to have little girls played by adults looking out the window and appearing and behaving with pigtails and all that. Even in this film, he does that. That basically, that sense, that thing of innocence, which, post-war situation in Germany, this entire thing of innocence was non-existent. The whole populace was guilty. You get me? Okay. Post-war guilt or whatever for the Nazi thing, the was deposited on the whole of German society because of the thing of they had to bear the burden of moral guilt for whatever Hitler did. Right? This is the basic thing, because they had supported Hitler, they had adored him, they had gone along with him. They had to pay the price. So the question is, this whole question of innocence is non-existent. So it's in that society, in that context, that he casts grown women as okay. But it is still more than that. I think this whole notion of this whole notion of these people, they're not able to talk. If you follow the conversation, it's completely banal. If you follow the conversation in this movie, it's completely banal. People express themselves in the coarsest, in the most basic kind of way. There is not an intelligent line uttered by anybody in the course of this movie. You get me? Okay. That's it. It's a characteristic that Fassbinder seemed to do, which is a certain stupidity. I brought out also when I was talking on Fassbinder. There's a certain stupidity that people have, including the victims. Everybody is stupid in Fassbinder's movie, and this film, no less than the others. Now that thing is, why does it work? Okay, let's look at both Hani and France. Okay, in French society, when you take a society like France, okay, which is a stable society, there's no burden which the populace is bearing. You can take individual motivation, you can take individual action and explain it through individual motivation, right? In Germany, having this great moral burden of the past only 5 or 6 years earlier, bearing that burden, then you can no longer explain this. You will have to somehow or other bring the milieu into it. I don't know if you get me. Okay. Russian movies, for instance, cannot talk about individual motivation, individual psychology without somehow bringing Stalin into it. You get me? Okay, the same thing with Germany, post-war Germany. You cannot talk of psychology in post-war Germany without bringing the immediate thing of the war and Hitler and Nazism all into it. But there's a cataclysmic political happening in a particular country that automatically contaminates all psychology. All psychology will be traced to that somehow. Okay, in fiction. You get me? Now, in India, such a thing has not happened. But the question is, for example, if you set a movie if you set a movie in Punjab in 1949 or 48, if you set a movie in Punjab in 1948, whether you like it or not, it will have to indicate partition in some way. You get me? Okay. It is not all over India. All India has not been affected by partition. It is largely certain pockets only, like Bengal and this and that, would be hugely affected. But the point is this, like Ghatak and all these people. So in this cataclysmic event takes place, all actions will somehow be led to that. This is the way. So a country like Germany, okay, would be hugely impacted. A country like Soviet Union would be hugely impacted. A country like China should be, if there hadn't it had been as a society where a democratic society, it should be. Okay. So the point I'm trying to make is, so the question is, when we interpret jailbait, we can no longer talk about jailbait in the same way that we talk about Renoir. You get me? Okay. You can't talk about it the way you talk about Renoir. It's a completely different thing, because in jailbait, you have to put it in the context of post-war Germany. Yeah, correct. It has to become, because something horrible has happened. It has to become a moral anchor. It is the way the psychology would have to be fixed to this event. This is the way it would happen in fiction. It is not to say, this is not to say that in actual life, I'm talking about the construction of fiction here. In actual German life in the 50s, there could not be individual motivation unlinked to Nazism. But when you construct fiction in the 50s, set in the German 50s, you will have to somehow or other bring in Nazism into it, is the point I'm making. So when we interpret something of Fassbinder, we'll have to look at Fassbinder in the context of the times, which is Nazism. If you had looked at, for example, England in the 50s or United States in the 50s, okay, not necessary. Okay, the United Nations States did not suffer. Japan, it would, I think, in some way. Okay, it would happen. Japan, it would happen. Not so much as Germany, probably. Okay. Now, France is trying to become an individual in industrial environment with the chicken factory. In fact, this whole thing of, his James Dean hairstyle, he's got a James Dean hairstyle and he's got this thing. And how do they deal with him when he's arrested? Just give him a haircut. That is the end of his James Dean haircut. He looks silly. Okay. Of the past, yeah, correct. That is true. Yeah, see, they seek that. But this is the thing of characters of fiction. They have to find some kind of thing. It'll have to be linked in some way. The artist has to link it in some way to that past event for a few years ago. Or Russian, you can't imagine a Russian movie which talks about individuals without, I'm talking about a certain era, a fairly long era, even not today probably, where this whole thing of the past is sort of intruding upon you. Okay, this is true of the cinema from these countries. Okay, so France, okay, Hani and France have been constructed by their societies. France, you see, the very fact of France having this James Dean hairstyle, just look at what Fassbinder does, right? James Dean hairstyle, but basically, where does he work? He works in a chicken factory, and you've got this huge thing of chicken. Obviously, okay, he's saying that they're all one kind. Your James Dean hairstyle or your pop music or anything, we are trying to assert your individuality. Makes no difference. You're basically the same thing. You're basically that mass object or whatever. That mass of creatures of this post-war generation is what you are. Okay, this is basically what he's saying. It's also interesting. He's with a migrant worker, the very time when he says, who is that? His immediate thing, okay, though he's his friend and he hangs out with him all the time, his immediate thing is to be contemptuous of the worker, right? Racial thing, okay, his immediate thing. And there is nothing in the film. Interesting thing is, there is nothing in the film to show that Germans feel remorse, that there's any sense of remorse, because he keeps bringing Hitler in, right? The wife, who is an anti-Hitler, says the Nazis also made mistakes. I mean, just look at that line. The Nazis also made mistakes, which means, okay, this guy goes on saying, he says, I would have rather 100,000 Jews were gassed than if my daughter done wrong. Okay, they made some mistakes, this sort of thing. I mean, there's no remorse at all. But what has happened to them is they've become emotionally benumbed. They have nothing. Okay, that conscience is there. See, the question is, you're in some kind of, that slaughterhouse thing is there, right? If you're working in a slaughterhouse, you've actually been a part of a civilization which has slaughtered human beings in millions, right? Okay, so what does it do to your moral conscience? What does it do? Okay, it completely benumbs you. Your basic thing is violence, which is why I said, murderous communication. That sense of inarticulate people in this movie goes along with their expressing violent thoughts. Like the father, he expresses violent thoughts, right? Killing this, killing that, castration. And when he says, I'll castrate him, I like him castrated, she goes quickly back to that lover of hers and tells him, my father wants you castrated. I'm just looking at the way the terminology is used. Okay, the way the terminology is used, he wants you castrated. He wants you killed. He says he'll kill you. He says he'll castrate you. So the question is, it's built up. I'm not an authority on criminal behavior. Okay, put it on my thing, not a problem. I'm just looking at these movies. I've just thought on these lines. I'm not an authority on criminal behavior. But please, I mean, you can talk, I mean, discuss. Look, I've been talking about East Europe. I'm talking about this. I'm talking about, whenever I see these movies, I'm trying to analyze them, what you might get out of them. I don't really know nothing about, I think Mohammed would probably know more about criminal behavior than me, being a psychologist. I've just looked at these movies, I have to say, but you can always get in touch with me. This thing is there. Okay. But whatever, this is the thing. Okay. Now, this whole thing of violent thoughts, violent actions. Now, this you have to understand. This is a question I've always thought of. Illiterate people, why is it there's a surfeit of violence? I mean, let's look at India. Okay. Illiteracy. You look at I know an employee of mine, some person I know. Okay. I mean, he's basically kind of the domestic employee kind of thing, right? The point is, how easily thoughts of killing come to them. Okay. How it's not that they'll actually think, okay, I don't like so and so, I'll kill him. I mean, I've come across this, they talk about killing as if it's a thing, and they also kill very easily. When you look at this, actually, my own sense is that killing is some kind of done in lieu of communication. If you can express yourself, you're able to, think. Anger, you will express your anger in some ways, you will articulate in some ways. There are subtle ways of articulating anger. It's like, it's exactly like your epics, your epic Mahabharata and Ramayana. There are no subtle ways of communicating emotions, right? Look at the kind of emotions that are expressed in your epics, right? Because these epics, I mean, you just look at the kind of killing which goes on, Draupadi, this happening, that happening, the kind of thing which happens in the epics. I mean, can you imagine this kind of happenings in everyday life? Those emotions, the drop of a hat, you have these emotions. They are basically the kind of emotions in oral culture, which is not brought about by, what is the word? Where the emotions are not, your articulation has not been modulated in some way. So the question is, your articulation is not modulated, you'll have a tendency to express yourself, and not only in words. See, after all, how do we express ourselves? Okay, it's not only through words. When you say like body language, you've got certain things. You will use a tone of a certain sort. It's learned, right? Your verbal conduct, your behavioral conduct is learned in some way. And if you're literate, you use subtle ways. My point is this: that in an environment where articulation is a problem, and when you cannot articulate, your immediate thing is to articulate in some extravagant way. Okay. There is really nothing to be gained, in my opinion. There is nothing to be gained by these two people murdering that father. Okay. Except as a form of communication. And I mean, this is, Fassbinder would not have argued, seen it this way, may or may not have seen it this way. So this entire fact that nothing is, that they're benumbed, they don't have the words to speak, makes them act in this particular way. They act in a certain way. Fassbinder, once again, will not question this and give you this is the way, this is my explanation. Okay, this is the way it is. Okay, so finally, this is interesting that there's a surfeit of experience which makes you inarticulate. There's a quotation from Walter Benjamin, which I said that, which I think is particularly useful here, that after the war, soldiers came back from the war not richer but poorer in communicable experience. You get me? So the question is, the experience gets too much, you don't have the words to express it, your capacity for communication comes down. Okay, it comes down. You cannot communicate what happened to you. A lot of stories about war and all that have that. There's a story of Hemingway called Soldier's Home. I don't know, you could read that some point. Interesting story about a soldier's completely inarticulate. Okay, he just comes back for the war. He has nothing to say, is that kind of thing, right? So I would look upon jailbait as that kind of thing, of people benumbed by the war. They have nothing to say. Because they have nothing to say, they act in this way, right? They're stupid. When I say stupid, they're basically inarticulate. Okay, they're stupid. Look, after all, we gauge intelligence or stupidity largely to your use of language, right? Okay, so the question is that stupidity, whichever these people have, comes because of their inability to use language. That inability to use language comes out of a situation. So this is my, but this you've got to understand that this sense of the uneducated, the inarticulate, resorting to murder, resorting to violence, is largely, like, for example, let us take this. I will teach him a lesson and resulting in killing. You just say, how do you teach a person? By killing him. How do you do that, right? When you say teach a lesson, isn't that a communication, right? Just look at that phrase used. I will teach him a lesson and you kill him. Okay. Isn't that communication? So that is my sense of it, right? So basically, this is what this film is doing. And this is the, I mean, he won't be articulated like this. But, these are all great filmmakers who are not really obliged to tell you what they are meaning in their movies. Okay. And they're not giving you a message in their movies. They're making movies the way they see their society, both Brenoir and Fassbinder, as well as this is the way they see it, right?
But when you're talking about that, maybe the political environment which seeps into these films,
Mm.
does a similar thing happen in the Iranian films?
You see, one of the things about Iranian movies is that they're doing in a society which is highly, what is it called? Censorship is very strong there,
Yes,
right? So
yes,
we can't really say exactly what they're doing. See, one of the things, for example, they go on bringing in children into movies, right? Now, one of the reasons they do that is the censorship. Now, think about all these country movies I've told you, I've discussed today. They come from democratic societies. There's no freedom. There's plenty of freedom of expression. Okay, so they're allowed to do whatever they want in their movies. They can do this sort of thing. In Iran, it will be very difficult to read Iranian cinema as a symptomatic of Iran as it is. It'll require much more effort. I don't think I would be able to do that. All I can say about Iran is that whatever he used, look, when I read German cinema, when I read American cinema, I can understand American society, I can understand German society. I seriously doubt if I can understand Iranian society from Iranian cinema simply because of the level of censorship. You get me? If it had been a free society, I would have been able to figure it out. Indian society, I can figure out by reading. Of course, I also know Indian society, but I'm saying it's possible to figure out by watching movies in a slightly. I mean, you'll have to know some basic grammar of Indian cinema, but it's possible to do it. Russian cinema, you can do it. Even today's Russian cinema, you can do something. Okay, you cannot do it with Iranian cinema. I seriously all this kind of cinema, I seriously doubt you'll be able to do anything. They don't come from democratic societies. Chinese cinema is another. Okay, you'll have to read between. You'll have to. You won't be able to figure out. See, people like Zhang Ke, Jia, and all that. They try to make movies trying to show China for what it is. They don't do it actually. They pretend that. They pretend to do that. You can't figure out much about Chinese society. Okay, by watching Chinese cinema, you can figure out Chinese compulsions of a filmmaker by watching Chinese cinema. Okay, unspoken. Yeah, correct. Yeah, repressive regimes will always make sure that full expression doesn't take place. So this is the problem with Iranian cinema. If it had been a democracy, it would have been possible, I guess. Is that okay with you, Mr. Balchandran? Okay.
yes. Except that I feel that despite all the repressive regime in Iran, the films seem not to be as affected as you would think they would be.
Yeah, the films are very good. I'm not saying the films are exceedingly good. They know how to make their movies. But can you say much about? I mean, aren't they opaque? My point is, aren't they opaque about Iranian society? Except when people like this, the guy who did Separation. What's his name? He actually puts in things about Iranian society into his movies.
Asghar Farhadi.
Asghar Farhadi. He puts in stuff about Iranian society. He shows you certain things like makes mysteries out of, create certain things. Certain things what they're prepared to show you, you can see it. You can make out whatever Iranians are willing to show. And they're also making movies in a certain way for Western audiences. But this is an issue I'll have to think about. I haven't thought very much about it. Okay, we'll have to think about it. What I can make about this? What can you make about Iranian society? See, one of the things is the complexity of the movies. You see, Fassbender hasn't put all these things. The movies are complex. He's just showing a representation only, and you figure out whatever you want. Iranian society films are not that complex in that way. They seem to thrust in certain elements, or you have to pick them up in some other way or something. They're not transparent, is what I mean. Okay. Let's go to the next one, which is this thing of. This is a very interesting movie. Again, completely behavior. The environment doesn't figure at all in this movie. It's a completely no. The film is a sexual triangle. Woman is the wife of a crooked mayor. The lover is an honest deputy mayor. Man has a sick wife whom he poisons her to be with lover. Okay, she's sick. She's very sick. He justifies it to himself somehow by saying that she died painlessly. Okay, but he kills her actually. Okay, then the husband finds out. The it's entirely built on character and motivation. There is no, okay, again, individual conduct is all in this movie. Okay, now the question is, um, he poisons his wife. He's got tears in his eyes when he kills his wife, right? He got tears in his wife. But the interesting thing here is, which I found very interesting in this movie, is when the husband discovers his wife's infidelity, he's happy. He's not unhappy, right? The husband is happy to discover an infidelity. And when he's happy, he has no problems and gets away because he gets a hold on the wife's lover, right? Gets a hold that he can manipulate the wife's lover now that the wife's lover is implicated. The wife bursts into tears. Okay. She can't control. Why is that? Why does she burst into tears when husband says, you go ahead and do whatever you want? I have no problem. It suits me. Why does that? And that
I
wonderful scene, that scene where the windscreen of the film, of the car, okay, it's raining and the windscreen of the car, the tears, this kind of emotion, brought out by that thing, the mechanical device of the windscreen. What do you think is the reason?
Sir,
What is the grief?
I think it's because of the daughter, sir. It's because of her daughter that she doesn't want to leave.
No,
Or
her grief at being allowed to do whatever she wants. Grief at being told that, yeah, I know all about your lover. You can go ahead and continue with it. I have no problem. I think basically, basically it is a sense of feeling cheap. Okay. You're caught in the act kind of thing. Okay. She has a certain guilt at whatever. The husband is there. He's been all right with the husband. The husband been all right, has been providing. He's not a bad fellow in the family way. In the family circumstances, not a bad fellow. I think she feels cheap because she's been caught in the act, caught there, and she realizes that the husband has no respect for her. You get me? She's completely lost the respect of her husband. Okay, that's very important to her. Okay, he doesn't say it again in so many words, but this whole thing of grief. And the point is this: the interesting thing here is they kill the husband because he accepts a relationship. This is a very interesting thing. Okay, they don't kill. Normally, what happens in movies like this triangle thing, adultery thing, is they kill the husband because he mustn't find out or because he for some particular reason. Here they kill the husband because he is willing to go along. I mean, this is interesting, right? Okay, this is a completely different thing because what happens is he has cheapened both of them. Okay, now the point is that this lover is an honest guy. Look, again, the question of ethics is that he's an honest guy. He's not a crook. Whereas the husband is a crook. Now, the point is this: because of whatever he's been caught in the act, he's actually lowered himself in front of the husband. You get me? Okay. He's sunk in the eyes of the husband. He's sunk in generally, and he has sunk in his own eyes. I think it's because of that they decide to kill the husband or the husband. Actually, this is a very complicated thing. Why do they decide upon the murder of the husband when the husband is prepared to go along? Correct, you're right, absolutely. That sense of self-esteem, right? Okay, you're cheating on somebody, you're there, that person doesn't know about me. See, what is self-esteem? Your self-esteem is dependent also on how other people see you, your close people see you. If, let's say, you come across some person, you meet some person, okay, who has a high opinion of you, okay, if that you do something and that person his opinion of you lowers, your high esteem, your self-esteem is largely a reflection of how other people see you. You get me? Right? Since other people see you in a certain way, your self-esteem is dependent on that. What happens is, here in this particular case, the self-esteem comes down because they are seen in a certain way by some person who they thought respected them. Husband is a crook, but he has been lowered in the eyes of this honest man. The honest man has been lowered in the eyes of the crook, right? So the question is, this crook is hated, the crook has to be removed. Okay, correct. They were standing. A moral high ground sounds slightly pejorative, but the point is they have scruples. I'll put it, yeah. The scruples they've been standing on, which they prided themselves on. Okay, they are ethical scruples. What is right and what is wrong, and this is public scruples, like being in a thing and that kind of thing, right? Those scruples, suddenly they find that a crook has got one up on them because of what they've done in their personal life. Okay, So this becomes a very interesting thing. And after that, once the girl simply sends a letter in the expectation that they'll somehow be cleared of it, okay, but has the opposite effect. And finally, there is no reason for the deputy mayor to confess to his wife's crime. He's not even charged with it. Okay, why does he do it? He does it simply to regain his lost honor or whatever in his own eyes, right? Okay, he has done that. It has been plaguing him. It has been bothering him. So in his own eyes, he has to regain. He'd rather be punished and regain his self-esteem some way in his own eyes. The result is, since anyway I'm being punished, let me put this also and let me be punished for both. Is the thing, right? So this is the his mind would work. It is she was suffering, whatever. It doesn't matter. But the point is, he admits to the other crime. Let me go along and let me suffer once and for all. And let me get out of this. Okay. This becomes a key factor in this particular thing. Okay, now is this okay? Will make sense to you?
Yes, yes, it does. But very complex. Still,
Yeah,
the
the motivation is
husband's
complex. Yeah,
murder. Yeah, yeah,
motivation
very.
is it's not a simple film, obviously. Okay, it's not a simple film, but it's certainly simpler than many ways. I think than the first two. It's only revolves around these three people. Okay, okay, this is a very interesting film. Actually, the Harry is one film which is completely blows my mind. I tell you. Okay,
May I make a comment on
please,
this?
please, please.
This is just relating to the husband and the wife, where the
Yeah,
wife is having an affair.
yeah,
Okay. And now, if you were in the position of the wife, you would much prefer to believe that the husband wants you, but you don't want the husband.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, right,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah,
Now, if the husband is also doesn't want you, then it's a
correct.
marriage of convenience. Each
Yeah,
person can keep on doing whatever they want. It
yeah,
doesn't affect the other party.
yeah, yeah.
Just a comment.
Yeah, correct. Yes, that's true. Yeah, but the question is, yeah, but the crime comes out of the lowering of their self images in some way. That you see, you've been caught at a crime. Look, I'll tell you. Let's say this. Okay, that's absolutely correct. But it's a little difficult, that you look cheap in his eyes. That is the basic problem that he's got on you. You generally look. She looks upon the husband with some kind of contempt, right? Okay, she's always there is no there's a look right from the beginning that the husband is nothing at all to her. In the sense it's somewhat contemptuous. Okay, but when that worm or whatever she's been studying as a worm looks back at her, it's more than she can bear. You get me? Okay. So in that context is the crime. But it's not a marriage. If it is only a marriage of convenience, they wouldn't have it had become a marriage of convenience. They might not have taken up the crime as a possibility. That's all I'm saying. Okay. It becomes a crime because of the lowering of their self-image is what a point I'm making. Okay. Now let's go into this last film. Harry is, it's a very strange film. Okay. It's a completely different approach to criminal motivation. Here, for a change, okay, I think the Harry meets his friend. He meets, I don't know. He meets his college buddy, okay, and that college buddy is somebody I admired all the time. Harry admired this Michelle all the time, okay. He has worshipped him, okay. Michelle doesn't remember him. I don't know if you come across this in school. I used to admire, for instance, a classmate of mine who's very good. In fact, this thing that a classmate of mine, some poetry he wrote, I remember, which he himself has forgotten. I remember. Very gifted classmate. Okay. But of course, so that kind of thing can happen, that people can admire each other. Okay. That a person is there. He's got this great ability to write this, to do this, to do this. It's a very common thing. And this guy, this Harry, is such a, he admires this man so much. He has dated that guy's girlfriend also. And he's remembered, he's compared notes. There's no rivalry. You see, that is the great thing about Harry. There's no rivalry at all between him and Michelle. Okay. It's the sense of, and he's got money. Okay. Michelle doesn't have money. He has not fulfilled his promise. Okay. Normally, what is this thing? You run into your old classmates. There is some rivalry. You want to compare notes. Where is he done after your college? What is he done? What have you done? You compare notes into it. So if there's any rivalry, you will compare notes to say, I have done better or he's done better. Have you noticed this? I don't know if you noticed this. When old classmates get together, the person who throws the party is the guy who's made the maximum money, right? He's willing to spend money. Okay. He is there's basically a demonstration there, okay, of how much basically a kind of demonstration of how well he has done kind of thing. They're really very happy to do it also. This kind of thing keeps happening all the time, right? So I mean, so it's that kind of, but it's usually a kind of, it's a thing of college rivalry. Here, that is not the case. Okay, Harry is not like that, right? Harry is not like that at all. Harry is a different kind of person altogether. Harry is the kind of person, okay, who simply admires this person, who's prepared to do everything for that person, doesn't want anything in return, simply admires him and wants him further to fulfill whatever promise he had, which he has not fulfilled, right? This is basically Harry's thing. It's a very interesting thing, okay? He has followed this guy everywhere. He recognizes him immediately. He remembers small details about him, which that man himself has forgotten. Okay. He buys him a car, drop of a hat, he buys him a car, nothing in return. Okay. He's got plenty of money, nothing in return. Okay. And he gives him tips. Even his sexual, whatever is not done with pride, it is simply as tips. Okay, you do this, you swallow white of the egg, you do this, you do that. Okay. It's advice for a good friend who can do better. Okay. And the important thing here is this Michelle and his wife, they say we don't want. But then after that, okay, after that, when the car comes in, they smoothly move into it. Okay. They smoothly use it. Their wife is driving around in the car and doing this, doing that. The fact that they're using whatever has been given to them by this Harry, okay, for all their thing, they're pretty easy to do with it. And then this Harry does so much good to this fellow, right? Only question about Harry is, okay, that he wants to, his admiration is all for Michelle as an individual, Michelle's talents, Michelle's this quality, that quality, all that. And he's not a family man. Okay. Harry is not a family man. In fact, very important when that Plum wants to have a child, this fellow says no, I think no children. Okay. He has seen, because the fact of this, he's got 3 children. He can't manage the children at all. The children are preventing him from doing anything. Okay. So that the presence of the children, the presence of the family is hampering him, hampering Michelle in every possible way. So he comes upon this. The question is, comes up with this. The parents are, that scene was hilarious. I mean, it's a very, very funny movie. That scene when he goes to meet the father says, let's check up your teeth. Now, what is this? Okay. That father is a domineering character who wants to check this man's teeth. For what? Exactly. I mean, what is this? Your son comes to visit you because your dentist will check up on his teeth. And this fellow agrees that my father is a domineering guy. The father has money. This guy doesn't have money. That situation, the father's money doesn't come to the son. He'll keep it for whatever, right? So the question is, so he kills the father and mother because they're a nuisance. They come and interfere in this fellow's life, try to muck up this, try to do this, try to do that, and these guys hate them. The wife and the husband both hate them. So the guy kills both of them. Okay. Then you find, this is very interesting. Sorry.
So does he kill them for that reason, or because he told the bridge has turned black?
No, nothing.
Not that.
He's completely selfless. Okay, he's completely selfless. Okay, he kills him simply because he's he's completely, because of his completely selfless character. This guy is Harry. He's here to help. He's a pakka title. He's really there to help. Only question is, how far is he going to go? There's a very important thing in this film is, why does the wife come in the way of Harry resuming his writing? Why does she come in the way of Harry doing his writing? That is when this guy gets the sense, immediately he senses you're a bad influence. Why is this guy a bad influence? He has been helping Harry realize himself as an individual, self-actualization as an individual, become a writer, he's got a third-rate job somewhere giving tuitions. He's been giving tuitions actually, okay? And that third-rate employment he has got, this guy is trying to get him off to actually become a writer, to actually do whatever he wants, okay? Why does the wife resent this thing of this chap's thing to a writer? Okay. Do anybody have any idea? Did it seem plausible to you?
Maybe when he has to do work, he's not doing that, and he's writing.
No, there's no such indication in the movie. There is no such indication in the movie that he's shirking his work. There's no such.
When he's in the bathroom, I think it was midnight or something, and he's writing. The wife comes in, And
Yeah, but
he,
look, no, he feels that Michelle, no, you know what it is. You know what it is. Okay. The issue is, okay, the issue here is the issue of the family. Okay. The wife sees the family as a unit. Okay. The wife sees the family as a unit. Any kind of individual development within the family would hamper the family, is the kind of thing that she's likely to have, right? He's developing, he's giving too much to the family, or rather he's taking away too much from the family. Okay. If he doesn't devote himself to the family, and that is a large family, okay, there are 3 children, right? Okay. If he doesn't devote himself to the family, the chances are, to her, the family is the unit. Whereas Harry wants the individual to be the unit. You get me? Okay. He wants the individual to be the unit, and that being the individual being the unit is a completely different thing. So the question is, that's why she thinks he's a bad influence. Thinks he's a bad influence. Okay. So finally the situation comes that he has to choose. Okay. Harry takes it for granted, okay, because Harry is not he kills Plum because he's no longer, he doesn't, like a family thing doesn't bother him at all. He wants this guy to be shine as an individual conduct, individual talent, individual achievement. This is basically it. Whereas this guy, he's actually in 2 minds. He's between being individual and being a family man. He's had 3 children. He has a family man. The wife wants him to be family man. So this question of conflict comes in. Okay. This chap is absolutely clear. It has to be individual achievement who are think, but he himself has no the goal to be achieve anything. Okay, he simply wants Michelle to fulfill those goals. Okay, so finally, when look at the extreme step of liquidating the family in order to further his thing. Okay, Michelle kills him. Harry is unable to he's completely surprised. Why? Why do you do this? Okay. He's completely shocked by that. Okay. So the question is, and finally, okay, he's completely shocked by this whole thing. The point is, Michelle's family and Michelle have got all the benefits from Harry, including inheritance. Okay. The fact that Michelle's poetry is mocked by that brother of theirs means he kills the brother also. And not only that, just imagine, the brother is dead, which means the property will come entirely to this fellow. That also is there, right? Okay. All material benefits from the property come to Harry. Obviously, the father and mother are well off. Okay. All material benefits, dentist, everything, all the material benefits will come to this Michelle, right? So the question, not only that, he's also started writing and he's successful. Wife thinks he's good. Now, the earlier that, that monkeys, flying monkeys may not have been a good poem or whatever. Okay. It may not have been good, but now wife also appreciates it. And it's possible that maybe some kind of compromise that maybe within the family you can still do it. So the film works like this. So you could see it as some kind of conflict between family interests. I mean, it's a quite fairly complicated film. It's not an easy film. It's complex. Okay. What is more, and not only that, there is nothing here which, would seem implausible. Harry is not implausible at all. Okay. Harry has hated his father. That's pretty much there, right? He's hated his father. Okay. So the question is, he extends that his own hatred of his father to Michelle also. And Michelle also behaves like that, right? They hate the father, right? Okay. They detest, the wife detests the father, everybody detests the father and mother, and they want to kill them. I mean, they don't want to kill them, but they just don't want to have anything to do with them. They're a nuisance, actually. They're a nuisance. They actually say that in so many words. Only question is, he can't act on it. This chap will act on it. That guy will take the benefits. This is it. Okay. So I've made my point in this thing. I hope I've made my point. Any questions here?
I have the 2 questions, and the answers of which I don't know. I'm just asking myself as well as
Okay.
the conference. Jack Nicholson in his one of his early movies, An Easy Rider, and it says that the difference between psychopath and the sociopath, psychopaths believe that what they are doing is actually right.
Okay.
And the sociopaths believe that what they are doing is wrong, but they don't care.
Okay.
that is the the interesting thing, that I haven't even, this haven't even been the agreed upon the APA until today. Sociopath and the psychopath is being used and interactingly. And within that line of the Jack Nicholson's character, just defining the term, can we look at it, Harry, as a psychopath? Because he believes what he is doing is right.
Yes, you're right. He's a psychopath. Yeah, you would say that. Yeah, psychopath. This guy is a sociopath who the pimp in the first movie. Okay, the pimp in the first movie, the in La Chienne, okay, is a sociopath. Okay, yeah, Harry is a psychopath. I would say that. Yeah, he's a psychopath.
And
By this
and
definition.
the other thing that I have in mind is the whether or not can that be the latent homosexuality, that being protecting, quote, his lover, end quote, by the, just doing all those things. Of course, that's the speculation, yes or no. But the extreme psychoanalysts that they think that everything is sexual, that I just raised the question that can that be discussed, whether or not actually he is in love with Michael than just protecting his lover, just the latently.
Well, he could be. I would say that, but it's look. There is it's a kind of hero worship. It's a kind of hero worship, right? It's that kind of when you say hero worship, would hero worship be homosexuality? I don't know. Of a man by another man, would that?
That's that's interesting, just the thing that
Yeah.
But I really appreciate it. It's like you always do, bring an entirely different angle that I have never had before in the movies, and I'm very appreciative.
Oh, thank you. But these are movies have been picked for that. They sort of they afford that that possibility of looking at at human life, at everyday life in a completely different way, in a completely you can show any number of movies. Yeah, you can. So you can. But the question is, are these movies the kind of movies which support sort of readings of that sort? In the sense, completely different. I mean, whatever I've said of these movies, whatever today, they're completely different, gives you a completely different picture of whatever we've seen, right? You will not get this sort of movies very easily. You will not get it very. Hitchcock gives you once in a way, but you won't get it out of whodunits, noir. You won't get it so easily. Okay, psychologically, you will not get that sort of thing. So, which is why I've picked these movies. Okay.
Thank you so much for
Thanks.
these
Thanks a
names.
lot. Thanks a lot. Okay.
Very
Bye.
interesting.
Bye.
Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for
Thanks a
joining.
lot for all of you. Bye.